Hello guys, so now we shall be discussing regarding the spleen. So all of you know that where is the spleen located? It is located on the left hypochondriac region, right? We have got two important things. We have got the right hypochondriac region, we have got the left hypochondriac region. Right hypochondriac region, you have got your liver. Keep this thing in mind. So when I have discussed regarding the abdominal regions, the Pandora's box, I have told you in each region, there are 9 regions I told you. In each region you have got a specific organ, okay? So that is very important to know. So on the right side you have got liver and on the left side you have got the spleen. On the left hypochondriac region you have got the spleen. Okay. Now what is the shape of the spleen? It depends. There are basically 3 different shapes of the spleen which usually people have. Okay. One is called tetrahedral, one is called triangular and another one is called as wedge shaped spleen. So we shall look at those spleens now. What are the different types and how are the shapes and all. Okay. So our topic of discussion today will be regarding the spleen. And all of you know, spleen is the main place where the RBC cells, right, the turnover of the RBC will occur. The RBC cells will die there after the 120 days, right. So this is a graveyard for the RBC. All of you know that, right? Right. So now here in the spleen, this picture which I am drawing right now, right. So this is the structure of the spleen. Now this spleen is called as a wedge shaped spleen. Now in this wedge shaped spleen, if I draw a line like this, in this wedge shaped spleen you have got some specific important parts. What are those important parts? See this part which I am shading right now, okay, this part which I am shading right now, right. So this part is called as gastric impression. What is this part you have to call it as? You should call this as a gastric impression. I will tell you what is that. Gastric impression. This is called as gastric impression, okay, and this center line is called as intermediate border. Intermediate border. And this impression over here, whatever you have, is called as a renal impression. What is this? This is called as a renal impression. Renal impression. What do I mean by this is, for example, let us say you have got your spleen in this way. Okay, let us say that you have got your spleen in this way like this, right? This is the intermediate border. Now in this spleen, here you have got your stomach, all of you know. This is your stomach, right? And in the same way, here you have got your left kidney. This is your left kidney, all of you know that, right? And on this side you will have your right kidney and this side it is a left kidney. Now if I am rubbing this part which is overlapping actually here, see, if I am rubbing this part which is overlapping, so here 2 important organs are overlapping on the spleen. So wherever they are overlapping, there is a impression that is formed, okay, impression in the sense there is a mark, there is a signature that is formed there. Okay, so that mark or that impression is, it depends upon what organ is making that impression. For example, this stomach is lying on the spleen, right, or this stomach is touching the border of the spleen. So when it is touching the border of the spleen, that entire area you call it as a gastric impression. If the kidney is touching, you call it as a renal impression. So in the same way, so 2 organs overlap the spleen. What are those 2 organs? One is called as the stomach. So this region entirely the stomach will overlap. So you call it as a gastric impression. And here the kidney will overlap. So you call it as a renal impression. Okay. So this kind of spleen, whatever you can see here, this is called as wedge shaped spleen. What is this? This is called as a wedge shaped spleen. Now after the wedge shaped spleen, the second important spleen which you can see here, this is the spleen, right? So you should know that this center part is the hilum or the intermediate border, right? So what is this? Is this triangular? It is not triangular. It is tetrahedral in shape. If you see 1, 2, 3 and 4, right? So this spleen is tetrahedral in shape. Now this region, whatever you can see here which I am highlighting right now, this is again There are two impressions I told you. What are those two impressions? One is called as a gastric impression, another one is called as a renal impression. So this one is the gastric impression, and the green one which I will be drawing right now, this one over here is called as a renal impression. And there is third impression also. What is this third impression, guys? Anyone? What is this third impression? The third impression is located below over here. What is this? This is called as 𝐒𝐲𝐫𝐢𝐻 impression. Now, what do you mean by 𝐒𝐲𝐫𝐢𝐻 impression? See here. For example, your spleen is like this. Your spleen is like this, right? I already told you that here you have got your stomach. You have got your stomach. Okay, now don't compare this picture exactly here. Why? Because here there is a renal impression, and here exactly on the same side there is a gastric impression. So don't compare this. I'm just drawing to tell you what are the impressions that are located. So there is gastric impression, and after that you have got your kidney, right? It means there is a renal impression. Okay, it means there is a renal impression. There is a renal impression. Third important thing is that all of you know that here we have got ascending colon, and after that we have got the transverse colon like this, right? You see, transverse colon, and again we have got the descending part of the colon. So this part which I will be highlighting right now, just look at this part of the colon, right? This part of the colon is also touching the spleen, right? So can I call that part of the colon which is touching the spleen, right? So the area on that spleen is called 𝐒𝐲𝐫𝐢𝐻 impression. Yes or no? So here we have got three important impressions to know. So this impression over here is called as gastric impression. And this impression over here we have got, it is called as a renal impression. And this impression over here we have got is the 𝐒𝐲𝐫𝐢𝐻 impression. And obviously not to forget, this center one is called as the intermediate border. So here we have got, these are the different kinds of impressions which we have got. So what are these impressions? Once again, this is called as a gastric impression. Okay, and the second impression which we have got is the renal impression, and the third impression which we have got is a 𝐒𝐲𝐫𝐢𝐻 impression, and the center one is called as the intermediate impression. Okay, right. Now after this one is called as a wedge shaped, and by the way, what is the name of this? This is called as a tetrahedral shape. This is called as the tetrahedral shape. Now after these two, the next important one. Okay, what is the next important one? The next important one is this. Now you will tell me the shape of this. What is this? Yes, you are right. This is triangular shape, and obviously here you have got your intermediate border. So here you have got only two impressions. What are those two impressions? See, one impression which is on one side, right, and the other impression which is on the other side. So what are these two impressions over here? So one impression over here you call it as gastric impression. And the other impression which you have here is the renal impression. And the center line which you have over here is called as the intermediate line. Or the intermediate border. So this type of spleen you call it as a triangular spleen. So what are the important spleens we have discussed? The first spleen which we discussed was wedge shaped spleen. Okay, wedge shaped spleen is having how many impressions? Two. One is called gastric, another one is called as a renal impression. Next we have got the tetrahedral shape. Tetrahedral has got how many impressions? Three impressions: gastric impression, renal impression, and 𝐒𝐲𝐫𝐢𝐻 impression. And next important thing is we have got the triangular spleen. So triangular spleen has got how many impressions? Yes, over here we have got gastric impression over here and we have got the renal impression over here. There are two impressions, okay. So these are the different kinds of spleens which we have. The second important thing we shall discuss is that where is the spleen located? What is the topography of the spleen? For example, if you look at the ribs on the vertebra on the posterior side, let us say these are the vertebra which are located on the posterior side, right? These are the vertebra. And all of you know that here we have got, this is, let us say, the 9th rib, okay? And after that, let us say this one as the 10th rib, and let us say this one as the 11th rib. So what are the ribs here? We have got the 9th rib, we have got the 10th rib, we have got the 11th rib. So there are 3 ribs. Now behind this 9th, 10th and 11th, behind this 9th, 10th and 11th is the place where we have our spleen. So if someone asks you where is the spleen located, you have to tell them that the spleen is located behind 9th, 10th and 11th rib. Okay, so the topography of the spleen is normally behind the 9th, 10th and the 11th rib. Okay, normally spleen is not palpable. Now if you want to palpate your spleen, you cannot palpate your spleen, but you can palpate your liver. Okay, so you make the patient to sleep on a supine position, right? Supine in the sense spine down. So supine position, in the supine position you try to palpate the liver, you will be able to palpate the liver, but if you try to palpate the spleen, it is impossible to palpate the spleen. So there are 3 different types of spleen enlargement. What are these 3 different types? One is called as the enlargement of spleen, you call it as splenomegaly. Okay, there are 3 different types: mild splenomegaly, moderate splenomegaly and massive splenomegaly. What is mild splenomegaly? In mild splenomegaly, you can palpate the spleen just below the costal border. So if I am able to palpate my spleen, it means I have mild splenomegaly. In moderate splenomegaly, the spleen will enlarge all the way till umbilicus, okay? And in massive splenomegaly, the spleen will enlarge all the way till the right iliac fossa, okay? So this is what I was telling you. So this is the center umbilicus, okay? Let us say this is the costal border like this. This is the costal border. And what did I tell you? So the spleen which you have over here, right? So normally if you are able to palpate the spleen, it means if you can look at my picture clearly, you see the spleen is coming out of the costal border. So this is called as mild splenomegaly. For example, yeah, this is called as mild splenomegaly. For example, if you are able to palpate the spleen all the way till the umbilicus here, okay, umbilicus here. So this is called as your moderate splenomegaly. So this part is called as, the yellow color part is called as a moderate splenomegaly. Okay, and all of you not to forget that this is your right iliac fossa, this is your left iliac fossa. Now, if I am able to palpate the spleen, right, all the way till the right inguinal region or the right iliac fossa here like this, okay. So this one over here, you call it as massive splenomegaly. So there are 3 important types of spleen enlargement. What are those 3 important types? Mild, moderate and massive, okay. So this is called as mild, this is called as moderate splenomegaly and this is called as massive. So all these are the 3 grades of what? Splenomegaly. All these are the 3 grades of splenomegaly. We have got mild splenomegaly, we have got moderate splenomegaly, mild splenomegaly, we have got moderate splenomegaly and we have got massive splenomegaly. So these are the 3 different types of splenomegaly which we have got. And where is the spleen located? Again, don't forget, behind 9, 10 and 11 ribs. Okay, so this is all you need to know regarding the topography as well as the types of the spleen. So thank you so much for watching my video. Goodbye.